Excellent. Here we are. This is my big day out to NQA to find out what happens at NQA as a certification body. I've been chatting to Laura Fletcher, who's the managing director, and I'm joined now by the main man for all the auditors, Mr. Archie Gemmell. Archie, thank you very much for joining me.
See, Adam, no worries.
Super stuff. So tell me Archie, what's your job title now?
So I'm the field director.
Field director.
Yes.
Okay. So I first met you when you were doing audits for NQA.
Yes.
So now you're just going up and up the tree.
So I met you back in, I think it was about 2017.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I just finished as a trainee, so I joined in 2017. So
Right.
been an auditor,
Yeah.
looked after the aerospace sector as an aerospace auditor as well, and
Yeah.
now field director.
Right. Okay.
So-
And what I'm interested to find out from you. So now you're a field director. You're in charge of all of the auditors.
Yes. That's
So
it,
all
yeah.
the audit service, all the audit quality. That's
Yeah.
that's down to you.
So yeah, I look after all the auditors, so kind of the whole pool, associate and full time.
Right.
Make sure they're all kind of trained up, competent,
Right.
and ready to deliver a good NQA audit.
And is that just for the UK, or do you travel around Europe?
Just for the UK.
Right.
So we have some input through the kind of agents and that, and looking after competence and stuff.
Right.
But largely just for the UK team.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I guess a large part of your job then is you're travelling up and down. Do you actually witness the audits, or are
Yeah, I
you,
do a combination. So kind of recruitment at the moment based
Right.
on growth and that. Travel around, do witness audits, so support the team. Field operations managers tend to do most of the witness audit activity because that's one of their key roles.
Yeah.
But I'm there in the background to support them. So I tend to do some of the aerospace witness audits. So
Right.
kind of where my bigger skill set lies, if you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get involved in the whole wider process. Yes.
Yeah, because I guess from an auditor competency point of view, you've got to look at several dynamics. You've got to say, are they competent to audit against that particular scheme, whether it's quality, environment, health and safety, aerospace, as you
Yep.
say, and then within the kind of the sectors as well. So within industry. So
Yep.
is someone
Yep.
good enough to go into logistics? Are they good enough to go into
Yeah, of
you know,
course, yeah.
manufacturing, whatever it is? Then
Yeah, of course.
That's what you're looking at.
Yeah, so obviously looking at the CV, their experience, and kind of matching them, making sure they've got the right codes for the job. So part of that process is the review up front, making sure they've got the right credentials to be auditing the right people.
Yeah.
And part of the witness audit process then is kind of pulling all that together.
Yeah.
So looking at the whole audit and their knowledge around knowledge and experience around the actual sector,
Yeah.
scheme and sector business-wise that they're doing,
Yeah.
that they're auditing against.
So what's the journey then for an auditor? They would come into NQA, they do like a training program, and then how quickly are they sort of out and on their own doing?
So it's funny, we're reviewing it at the moment. It's a big piece of work because we're growing and we're recruiting at the moment. We're looking at that whole process.
Yeah.
We're trying to map it out a bit better and maybe streamline it. But largely, we've taken quite a lot of trainees, so people that have got industry experience and maybe hold a certificate for having passed a lead auditor's course, but not necessarily any third-party experience. So we're following our process where they go out and they do a certain number of shadow days, then they become a team member, and then we look at witness audits. The number of days are largely at minimum, so we're building their confidence, but we're also building our confidence in them delivering it. So obviously we want credible people out representing NQA as an auditor.
Yeah.
And then we go through the process there, so they do the team member work, then we kind of give them more aspects of the audit, build their knowledge of the whole audit process, and then we do a witness audit. So then they go out, do the lead auditor, and if they pass, perfect, we release them into the wild, so to speak. If they don't pass, that's just a training opportunity then. So we raise non-conformities and we follow the whole process, root cause analysis, look at them, identify the training opportunity, build that knowledge, and then we get them back out,
Right.
more work,
Yeah.
another internal witness audit, and excuse me, and then pass them off,
Right.
and they're out auditing.
So you're recruiting at the moment.
Yes, we are.
There we go. So if you're looking for a job, maybe Archie's the man to kind of. Would they get hold of you, Archie? Or
yes, they can get hold of me, or
Yeah.
they can get access through the website. So you can go on the website, look at recruitment on there.
Yeah.
Gemma, the HR manager, pass your CV to her, or my information's on there as well. You can pass CVs to me, and then we'll reach out and plan
Yeah.
something from there. Yeah.
There you go. This could start off somebody's entire new career.
Of
with
course,
NQA,
yeah,
you
and
never
that's
know.
what we're looking for. Yeah.
Life-changing.
Yes. Yeah.
Superb. So, okay, so we've got the auditor. He's then, or she is, off and running. I mean, it's a really broad mix as well of auditor sort of backgrounds, and you know, you've got a much more what's the word? It's a much better mix now, I think, than in the past, wasn't it? It used to be quite sort of staid, but now I think it's a lot more. It's a much broader mix. A lot more younger auditors, and
yeah, I think kind of the age demographics come down, and I think that's good. So kind of people that are more recently active within industry as well, so that knowledge transfer when we're auditing adds more value because they can get more into the depth of what's current. So current from actually doing the role rather than current from maybe doing some CPD and stuff like that. So yeah, we're trying to bring that age demographic round. It also makes, from my perspective, I think it makes the auditing better because people are a bit more engaged as well. So
yeah, definitely use of skills and technology and all those sorts of things. Yeah, interesting stuff. So let's ask those questions then about. So I'm going to be audited in a couple of weeks' time. I'm expecting the NQA auditor to come along. What should I expect? What does he want?
So, you know from experience, because I've actually been involved in audits with you, yeah. So, yeah, it's having a customer that's kind of engaged in the process, and obviously the auditor going in, being well organised, well planned, but kind of the same with the customer, that they know their system, they're confident in their system, they can access all the relevant evidence and information, they're open and they're free for the discussion around things, they're not kind of constrained by their own opinion on it. We're there to test the system and make sure it conforms. We're not there to pick people up and pick faults. So really it's about being open and honest, and maybe having difficult conversations about things that might not quite be right. But having the evidence and kind of buying into the process, really, because then if you're kind of committed to the process, the auditor can get in much more depth and the customer can get so much more value from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because look, I've been doing this far longer than I ever expected to, but I mean, I'm exhausted at the end of an audit. I genuinely, I say to all of the clients that we work with, just be open, honest, and all that sort of stuff. But it is an exhausting process, and it's quite sort of. We have some clients who are almost like terrified by the whole thing because it's someone coming in. What's the worst thing that can happen? You know, apart from like someone screaming off. But what's the worst thing that can happen in an audit? Is if a non-conformance occurs, if the auditor says this isn't passing, is that it, or what happens then?
Well, no, it's not it, because it's always an opportunity. It's how that's perceived, and the idea really is how the auditor explains that and deals with that issue with the customer. So like I say, if the customer's committed to the process and know that we're there to help them improve, it's so much easier, so you don't get a barrier in place then. But no, it's not the end, that's just the opportunity to improve something and then improve the system and make the fix so that things work better. So it's not a blocker as
so
such.
it's part of a process, because then if there was a non-conformance, then the auditor would then they would say, look, here's what the situation is, and then I'm guessing that there's a non-conformance process where you would then say, right, either we come back or you send us evidence.
Of course, so that's the opportunity then to go into the root cause analysis, understand why it's failed, understand how you can improve the processes, make the changes, look at training within the organisation, but ultimately fixing that problem to make it conform again. But also improve the business and the operations and the processes and how that works within that business. So it's almost a tool and a lever to make the improvement rather than somebody saying it's a bad thing. Non-conformance, in my respect, yes, you don't want too many, but non-conformance is a good thing because it drives improvement.
Do you test your auditors on how many non-conformances they raise?
We do look, yes. So we do some analysis on it, particularly with the aerospace scheme, because it's kind of an industry-led thing. So we do look, and we look at kind of how many majors they raise, how many minors they raise, and see that sits around industry levels as well. So we don't want somebody being overly harsh. We
Yeah.
want them to look at the problems and identify the issues and make sure there's conformance, but
Yeah.
it's about adding value as well. So
Yeah,
we do
sure.
some analysis around that to make sure we're kind of where we need to be as
Yeah,
well. So,
yeah. And I guess it's a proportionate thing as well, isn't it? That if the auditor's going out and then they're seeing that the company has raised issues on themselves and closed them out, that's the effective program that you're looking for.
And that in itself, if we go in and we see something and we see that they've put actions in place already and they've looked at it, that's kind of helps you along that process as well, because you know they're driving change and they've identified issues. You're maybe kind of nurturing them further along that path then.
Yeah, okay. Right, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot with the next question.
I hope not.
So with integrated audits, if you've got an auditor who's coming along to look at both, say, quality, environment and health and safety, let's go for the big three. What does that mean? How does an auditor then, if they're looking at something, what's an example then of how they might do that audit in an integrated way? If say they were looking at facilities management, do they ask the same question 3 times or what happens?
No, obviously they should be asking the question, but then in their mind looking at it from the 3 different kind of standpoints, if you like. So understanding how the evidence and the detail supports that. So you wouldn't ask the same question 3 times to write 3 different reports. It's showing that the requirements are being captured across the piece in that respect.
Right, okay. And then from an NQA point of view, does that go into one report or is it 3 reports?
So it's one combined report.
Right,
so it picks up all the requirements, and obviously the detail of the report picks up the individual aspects of it as well then.
Yeah, okay. All right. So you've got a so then that is cohesive. And if you've got more than one auditor that's coming along, you would the lead auditor, I'm guessing, would then coordinate with the other auditors.
So the lead auditor would manage the plan, put the actual audit delivery and everything, and they would communicate with the auditor that is the team member, and then coordinate that information going into one single report. So they've kind of taken away any duplication, identified any issues, see where it sits across each scheme, and make sure the right information then is dropped into the report. Yeah,
okay, fine. Now I've got one, we've had some clients who knew that I was coming today, and I had one particular question that came out, and this was, in their management review, they had identified some objectives. They were very much kind of tasks they do and things they wanted to do, but they didn't have objectives that kind of spanned the whole program, their 3 years of certification.
Okay.
So there was a bit of a discussion around it. What would you say to an organisation if they were looking to get the most out? If they were looking to get the most out of a management system, what would you expect to see in terms of objectives? How far should they be looking ahead?
I would say it depends on the business and what they do and how they perceive it. But I would expect to see some link from maybe the business plan and that planning out further down the line, and maybe some short-term objectives, so kind of short, medium, long, and having something in place. If they haven't got the long-term objectives in place, I would make sure that the reviews are effective and that they can see whether they've been rolled on into the next year or whether it's been achieved, and then looking at progression into the years after that. But ideally I would like to see that flow from maybe the business plan and where they want to be and linking it through. So my opinion, I would like to see more than a single year. However, if that's the way they do it and that's the way they want to do it, as long as the review's effective and you can see where they're going and it's managed with the direction, that would be good for me.
And it's almost, that's where you then look back at previous management reviews and see what that history is. Excellent.
So trended it in that respect.
Exactly that. Superb. I'm here with Archie Gemmell, the Field Director for NQA. He's in charge of all the auditors. So everyone who comes out to you, Archie's the man who's made sure that they're good to go. Archie, last couple of questions. First one, the standard was amended for the climate change. All the standards, the ISO standards were amended for the new climate change question. Is your organisation affected by climate change? You know, what's the risks? How's that panning out now? Is that being fully audited as people are going around?
So when when we first had that information flowed down to us, so I sat with Steve Russell.
Yeah.
He's our global accreditation director. We looked at how we would roll that out to the auditors. So we provided some information around it. Looked at obviously the UCAS flow down, the IEF communique, coordinated all that information. We drafted a document which now sits in our management system. We provided awareness for the whole auditor team, so both full-time and associate auditor pool. We pulled out some information about how to actually apply it. So looking at it from how it flows from clause 4 through to clause 6 and maybe into the operational with the clause 8, and looked at some of the ways that it could be picked up through a management system, and then also on the back end of that with the technical review aspect as well.
Right.
So making sure the right information goes into the report to show that the consideration's been made, and if they think there's no impact, that they've actually made the statement to say there's no impact with a credible justification around that as well. So yeah.
And have you monitored the feedback at all?
Yes, so part of our technical review process, we monitor where issues are picked up, so this forms part of that process, the same as any other clause within the standards. So through that we get feedback, so the feedback to the auditor directly from the reviewer. If they've not picked up the requirements, it goes in. We've got a process for then monitoring any pickup, so to speak, and we can direct that back, that then we can use that information for awareness training, or kind of be that the individual, the wider team, or even from a review perspective as well, following that back. So yeah, we've followed back the climate change aspects. Initially, maybe a little bit of pushback with people maybe not considering it. However, when you have the discussion and the intent of the new clauses through the annex, once you explain the intent of it, customers then kind of get it. I think there was maybe a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction that climate change being pushed in, why do we need to do that? It's an environmental standard type of requirement. When you kind of explain how it's flowed in through kind of Annex SL, that perspective, where the impact is and how that flows through the business and how they can realistically look at it. And largely people are doing that already because people want to be sustainable and environmentally friendly. I think the penny almost clicked quite quickly that people are picking up the requirements and showing the intent around it within kind of context of the organisation type documents, and how that then flows into the risks and that as well. So yeah, we monitor it, and largely it's been positive.
It's been really interesting because I think, like you say, there was a knee jerk, and we saw loads of communications going out when it first came out. And everyone was jumping straight on, oh, this is carbon, or oh, you just wanted me to do carbon, I'm not going to measure my carbon, da 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 da. And then you start to explain, like you say, well, hang on a minute, have you got global supply chains? Are they being held up? Can you actually make tea in Kenya anymore? You know, the stuff that you're selling, is it possible? And then you've got global migration problems and all sorts of things. So.
I think many people have captured it without necessarily realising how well they've captured it. I think probably the difference is they've maybe not documented it quite so clearly, where this has maybe aligned it a bit more because there's a specific requirement in the clauses now, and how that will then roll on. Because that specific requirement's there, it's almost the pennies drop that they've kind of straightened everything up a little bit more to make it more obvious.
But they've got that.
Yeah.
Superb. Very good answer there, Archie. Thank you very much. So Archie Gemmell from NQA. Last question. I'm definitely going to put you on the spot now.
Okay.
Right. So you do this kind of, you look at the feedback of all the standards, you know, of all the clauses and all those sorts of things. If you were going to give, I know you can't do consultancy, but you're an experienced guy. You've been around the block, if that's a good thing to say.
Right.
What three things would you say to a client who's got an audit coming up? What would you say to them to have ready to go?
To have ready to go. So I would say you need to be prepared. You need to have a good understanding of your system, that you actually use it as day-to-day business, and understand it. You have a hand on the evidence, you know where the evidence is, or you have a handle on who the right people is to supply the evidence is, so that you can support that audit process.
Hey, they're three good tips. So
Yeah,
know your system.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Know where the evidence is.
Mhm.
Know who's got the evidence.
Yeah.
That's the key thing.
Because the system should be managed by, or managed, it's managed usually by an individual, but
Yeah.
it's everybody else is bought in because it's the company's system.
Yeah.
So it's demonstrating that knowledge and being able to pull it. There's nothing worse than sitting there and kind of knowing that somebody may not have the best view on it, and it takes time
Yeah, it's a little bit awkward
to pull
yeah.
things, and yeah, it makes it clunky, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's that awareness of your system and the business's wider awareness of it as well.
Yeah, Laura made a really good point when we were talking, was that she said as NQA what you're doing is you're looking at the governance of the system and how you're managing that system, and that system goes across the company.
Mhm.
It's not, yours isn't necessarily an instructional role. There is an element because we're all,
Yeah.
you're auditors, and you need to kind of explain what it is you're trying to get to, but
Mhm.
actually the company should have that sort of
Yeah.
that knowledge already, and it's really you're
no,
looking
exactly.
at that.
And I think conversely with that, it's the auditor being open, the
Yeah.
evidence is demonstrated in different ways as well.
Yes, yeah.
So no preconceived ideas of what you're expecting to see. The
Yeah.
customer demonstrates their compliance, and that may look different depending on the customer as well. So as much as you have an expectation of a customer, I have an expectation of the auditor going in and being open
Yeah.
as well. So it works both ways.
Yeah, excellent. Good. So you've got all these auditors. What happens when that auditor wins the lottery and then they go off and you like, oh, damn. Does it matter? Does it matter do you think that if you've got a new auditor going into a company, should it matter? Should it be a seamless process?
It should be a seamless process, yes, because we train people up to a standard, but I think audits are more than just an auditor going in. It's about relationships,
Yeah.
and it's about personalities and people, and that connection that people make, because that's, if you make the connection with the customer, that's when you can get into the detail, because they relax through that process. So it's always disappointing for an auditor to go, and yes, we can get another auditor in, but you can't get the same personalities in that. So
Yeah.
that's where we have to look for, and going through the process at the moment, recruiting, looking for the right people to fit,
Yeah.
rather than having somebody that's qualified, because qualifications are great. However, the auditor as a person is a big part of that as well.
Yeah, it's and that's massive. And it is, look, this is a person-to-person business, isn't it? That's fundamental.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Mr. Archie Gemmell, Field Director at NQA.
Thank you very much, Archie.